Hello, welcome to the True Crime Lounge podcast. This is the podcast to my YouTube channel, which is also True Crime Lounge. I have Instagram and Facebook you can go and find me at. I also have a merch shop that you can go and check out. The colors represent certain cause I advocate for and I'm raising funds for, so you can go and check that out, and those will go proceeds of those sales on those shirts will go to a nonprofit um as well. But with that being said, why don't we jump into today's episode of James Byrd Jr. and Matthew Shepard and the impact they have left us with. First, we're going to start with Matthew Shep Matthew Shepard. Even though I don't think I said it in before we took our quick break, but I meant to say James Byrd Jr. and Matthew Shepard. And I'll be honest with you, every time I hear your last name Shepard, after watching Grey's Anatomy in private practice, my mind just kind of automatically assumes Derek and Amelia Shepard. But anyway, who is Matthew Shepard? Well, he was born Matthew Wayne Shepard on December 1st, 1976 in Casper, Wyoming. He died October 12th, 1998 in Fort Collins, Colorado. Um, he was a college student who was severely beaten because of his sexual orientation, and he was left to die in 1998. He was discovered and hospitalized though he succumbed to his injuries. His death was evidence and physical danger of homosexual still um, injuries. His death, which was evidence for physical danger that homosexuals can still sometimes face in the United States, um, which played a key role in the 2009 passage of the legislation that expanded the federal hate law that included the violence committed of his orientation, because of the orientation of the victim. His father was an oil rig inspector who worked in Saudi Arabia. Matthew attended high school in Casper, Wyoming, and at the American School in Switzerland before mar- matriculating at the University of Wyoming Laramie, where he studied foreign relations, languages, and political science. On campus, Shepard had been open about his sexuality. He had been involved in university's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender student associations. So on October 7, 1998, Shepard was befriended by two men, Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson, who were posing as gay in order to lure him away from a local bar. And I'm not going to get into the videos of the people specifics of the videos of the killers, mainly because that's going to be a separate video I'm going to do on my YouTube channel. But um, they drove him to a rural area where they would hide him on a fence, administered the brutal beating, and left him to die in the cold. Shepard was called 18 hours later by bicyclists and was rushed, still alive but in a coma, to the hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado, where he died 4 days later. McKinney and Henderson were found guilty of murder. Shepard's death attracted widespread media attention not only in the small town of Laramie, which had a population of fewer than 30,000, but also across the country, across the world. Although federal laws at the time covered hate crimes based on race, color, religion, national origin, none included sexuality or sexual orientation. So in 1998, Wyoming was one of 10 states that had no hate crime laws to protect specific categories of people. Shepard's death was cited to figures within the gay rights movement as a clear-cut evidence of the need for protection, more expansive federal hate crime and legislation. In 2007, the Local Law Enforcement Hate Crime Prevention Act, later dubbed the Matthew Shepard Act, was introduced was introduced to address these shortcomings in the law. Although the bill was passed by the U.S. House of Representatives, it was delayed because it was a widespread Republican opposition, including the U.S. President George W. Bush, who threatened to veto it. So in 2009, a modified version of the bill was finally approved by both the House and the Senate. Later that year, the U.S. President Barack Obama signed the legislation, which was officially known as the Matthew Shepard and James Boyd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act in 2009. Byrd was an African American who was brutally killed. I'll talk about him in a minute. By three white supremacists in 1998. Shepard was memorialized by the Matthew Shepard Foundation, an organization that begun by his parents, Dennis and Judy, on a mission to replace hate with understanding, compassion, and acceptance. There were various educational initiatives. Shepard was remembered in the play The Laramie Project, a chronicle of his death composed of interviews of Laramie residents which was created by Tectonic Theater Project shortly after his death. Shepard was also the subject of two television movies, The Matthew Shepard Story and The Laramie Project. Both came out in 2002. The latter version of the play. Because concerns of his grave would have been vandalized, Shepard was not buried until 2018, when his ashes were interred in the Washington National Cathedral, where his ashes were interred in the Washington National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. So, since we talked about Matthew Shepard, now let's talk about the other part named on the bill, James Byrd Jr. Who was he exactly? Well, um, on a spring afternoon in May, Keith Adams and James Traylor sat on lawn chairs out of Huff Creek Road, a single lane thoroughfare outside of Jasper city limits. Two men, between swigs of Bud Light, laughed and traded memories about their former neighbor, James Byrd Jr. One said he was a clown, although always singing and inspirational. He said that he was going to make history. He did make history. It took his death to make history, but he did make history. So, on the early morning of June 7, 1998, three white men chained Byrd's ankles in the back of a pickup truck and dragged him down 49-year-old black man for nearly 30 miles. The same isolated road and woody road where Adams and Traylor sat. The remains of Byrd's decapitated and mutilated body were left outside of a nearby African American church to be found on Sunday morning. His gruesome murder shocked the nation and brought an onslaught of attention to a small East Texas town fondly known as the Jewel of the Forest. In the immediate aftermath of Byrd, sorry y'all, hang on one second. That was a job I am applying for. I apologize for that, y'all. But, anyway. In the immediate aftermath of his killing, the town sprung into action. Church leaders and local officials sought to keep the peace and mitigate residents' fear of more violence. The Jasper County Sheriff's Department worked with local and national law enforcement to investigate the heinous crimes that ultimately convict these three white men for capital murder through three separate trials. During the next 2 decades, Byrd's name would continue to be heard. State and federal hate crime laws passed in Byrd's name in 2001 and in 2009, respectively. And the execution of two of Byrd's murderers confirmed rights supremacists also forced the state and the public to remember that a well-liked black man was killed for no other reason than his race. So, that's crazy though. Like, and it's sad that we still live in a country where this is still happening. But anyway, today, 20 something years after Byrd's death, the incident has faded in the background. More residents of Jasper, which is home to about 7,400 people, according to most of the recent um, the recent estimate, said that they seldom talk about tragedy that happened in their county, and a young East Texan hardly seemed to recognize the name James Byrd Jr. Like, when Byrd's killing had recorded further injuries in the history, hate crimes and violent extremism have steadily grown, with Texas leading the nation on incidents of white supremacist propaganda. For Byrd's family and loved ones, it's Byrd's jovial personality they remember most, and that they hope that in remembering and educating, then they can mitigate hate. So, one person even said, "We can't just say that what happens to James is another day in Jasper." Someone also says that as of now, we are now on our own to keep his memory alive. So, Living Bird Harris thinks that thinks back to growing up in Jasper. She recalls the warmth and safety. Her eldest brother Byrd played a large role in that. She even goes on to say, I liked being around him because I learned a lot from him. He enjoyed people and people enjoyed him." Byrd also was able through town to visit neighbors and entertain them with jokes and musical performances. He was also a talented singer and played the piano, trumpet, according to family members and lifelong residents. He was often called upon to perform at birthday parties, funerals, and other events. You can pay someone to perform. You can get someone to perform at a funeral. I don't know why that's intriguing, but actually I do know. But that's a different video for a different day. um, Gloria Mays Washington says, "I remember him as a jolly person who loved to sing. As someone who graduated with board at J.H. Rowe High School, around the same time the school desegregation plan took effect." Harris would go on to say that James was a loving person and he loved people. So you can't figure out who in the world would get mad at James to kill him. Kenneth Lyon says that everyone knew James Byrd Jr. He was a Kenneth Lyons was a pastor of a Jasper church that the Byrd family attended called the Greater New Bethel Baptist Church. And he would also go on to say everyone loved him because of his personality. In his adulthood, a fall left him disabled, and family members said that the divorced father of three lived alone in Jasper. Byrd enjoyed drinking, and he was known to sheriff's department because he was arrested on minor crimes. He continued playing music and also earned money as a salesperson. He could sell anything, Harris said, by the time he leave you and have a $2,000 vacuum cleaner. But that's still crazy, guys. But yeah. So the Byrd family requested that the city proclaim June 7, 2023 as James Byrd Jr. Day. The mayor will issue the proclamation at the next city council meeting, June 12th, according to the city secretary, Karen Pumphrey. Harris said that the Byrd family is also planning a memorial service at James Byrd Jr. Memorial Park, which is named in Byrd's honor in 1999. So, what exactly is the Hate Crimes Prevention Act of 2009? Well, the the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. The Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act 2009 was enacted into Division E of the National Defense Authorizations Act for the fiscal year 2010. Section 247, Title 18 provides funding and technical assistance to the state, local, and tribal jurisdictions to help them with more effectively investigating and prosecuting hate crimes. It would also create a new federal criminal law which criminalizes willfully causing bodily harm for attempting to do so with firearm, or other dangerous weapons. The crime committed because the actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin of any person or the crime was committed because of the actual or perceived religion, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability of any person in the crime affected interstate of foreign commerce and occurred within federal special maritime and territorial jurisdiction. So the newly enacted Statute 249 had three significant subsections. Subsection 1 was criminalize violent acts and attempts to commit the violent acts undertaken in the dangerous weapon when those acts occur because of the actual perceived race, color, religion, or national origin of or family or person. The section of the summit had a broader reach than existing hate crimes. Um, Subsection A2 would protect a wider class of victims. Subsection 3 will provide the prosecution crimes committed because of any characteristics defined or whomever was such with the Special Maritime Territorial Jurisdiction or SMTJ of the United States. So the statute criminalizes in only violent acts resulting in bodily injury or attempting to inflict bodily harm through the use of firearms, explosives, and incendiary devices and other dangerous weapons. I'm paraphrasing a lot of it, guys, for you, but some recent opinions that this has been used in it has been United States versus Beebe, United States versus Maybe, and Glenn versus Holder. But that is it for today's episode. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a great day.